Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. And big night last night. Talking boxing. It was great to be back. Talking, I was just there, talking boxing with everyone out there. A lot of topics to be covered. The main one was obviously concerning Tim and Nikita and Michael Zarafa and everything like that. But as to be expected, we obviously came back last Tuesday for a last minute sort of get together, but it was good to actually be back to sort of normal programming last night and have a chance to answer all of the questions and everything and comments that people had. Before we get going, we'll get into what happened on this day in boxing history. And this is one I found sort of really interesting. 1751, if you can believe that. The first international world title fight. Jack Stack of England defeated the challenger. Hasn't got a first name. It says M. Petit of France. And it doesn't say actual rounds. It just says minutes. 29 minutes is what they fought. So allegedly or apparently that is the first recognised international world title fight. So there you go. The other one that happened on this day only was a couple of years ago. Which was the undisputed world welterweight title fight. I was very lucky to be at this fight. Terence Crawford with destruction of Errol Spence at the T-Mobile Arena. Sort of brought back sort of memories of Leonard Hearns, Donald Curry, Milton McCrory. I know a lot of fans probably won't sort of remember that one or appreciate that one, but at the time that was just as big as what Crawford Spence was. And just every sort of decade or two you have a big welterweight title fight, and that was it 2 years ago. It had been building up for quite some time. A lot of people gave Spence a chance. Now, I must admit, I don't know, obviously I gave him a chance. He was undefeated and a world champion. But I just thought style-wise, Terence Crawford was something else. The only probably thing I gave, some points against Crawford as far as his chances were the fact that he was coming up from lightweight, and who would have thought that 2 years later he'd be 2 divisions higher or three divisions higher. Again, to think that he went from lightweight, so 135 to 140 to 147, and people thought, oh well, that's his limit, that's his ceiling, and that's probably where he'll stay. To think that then he went up to 154, a lot of people saying, 154, now he's at 168. And actually looks pretty good. I know he's obviously probably carrying a little bit at the moment, being his natural weight. I'm pretty sure he said he gets up to about 180, which is quite high, obviously. Come here, man. Looking at the photos of him recently, doesn't look that much smaller than what Canelo is. So what are we, 7 weeks away? I think we are, 6 or 7 weeks. It's going to come around really quick, and it looks like both guys are starting to ramp up the training, which is good. But that particular fight, Crawford and Spence, right from the word go, Terence Crawford was just on. Now, I know in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing as always. Errol Spence just looked a shell of himself, didn't he? Now, I don't know whether it had a lot to do with Terence Crawford himself or the fact that he was legitimately a shell. He obviously had the injuries and the car accidents and inactivity, and look, all that put together, just coming up against an absolute phenomenal fighter in Terence Crawford, who on that night gave the performance of his career. He really did. And the great fighters do that, don't they? Even talking about Leonard and Hearns, those types of guys. Leonard's was, well, you could probably say it was Hagler, but was it the first Hearns fight? And Durant had his fight against Leonard, and it just happens. But on that night, Terence Crawford was, I think, easily the best fighter on the planet. He really was, and absolutely took Spence to the cleaners. And I think he knocked him down. What was it? It was early in the fight. Was it the first round? I can't remember, but I haven't rewatched the fight, but he knocked him down early, and then it was just one-way traffic for the whole fight before it was stopped. I think it was at the 9th round. So can he replicate that when he takes on Canelo? We will see. Look, I'll be honest with you, I'm still not feeling it yet. Now, it looks like I am going to go over for it. We haven't had any, we've had a lot of inquiries about the trip. No one that's actually put pen to paper yet, but that's fine. It was never about, relying on the trips or people to go for me to go. I'm just like, well, I'm going. Who's coming with me? So it's not a big deal, but yeah, it looks like I am going to go. But yeah, it's not really. Well, I'm not really feeling it as yet. I'm sure I will once the promo videos start to come out and all the hoo-ha and the hype and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure it'll be massive. I did look on the sites the other day for tickets, and there's a lot sold. There's a hell of a lot sold. So I'll probably in the next sort of week or so grab my tickets. They're not cheap. I think the tickets right up the back start at about sort of $350 US. And in a 65,000 seat arena, where you're probably watching the screen for most of it, it's a bit of money to pay. You're looking at 500 Australian dollars just to sit right up in the bleachers. But anyway, I think just being there for the event will be pretty cool. It's probably one of those Mayweather Pacquiao moments where, like, we didn't actually go to that fight, but we're in Vegas for it, and just the buzz and the hype and the excitement about it. And I've got to feel, I don't think this will reach those heights, but I think this is one of those once in a decade sort of fight that that comes around and just really grabs everyone, I suppose. So will it do that? Will Crawford be able to measure up? I think he will. And more people are starting to predict that he might actually beat Canelo. I haven't really come to a hard conclusion yet, but all I think I know, is that Crawford will turn up and he'll give a really, really good performance. And depends on what sort of training he does, whether it's all about speed and movement and everything else, or he tries to sort of go with Canelo size-wise. I don't think he would. I think that would just be suicide, wouldn't it, to go sort of toe-to-toe with Canelo and try and outmuscle him. I think if he puts on some good size and uses it effectively, I think he's a really, really good chance. All right, so on to last night. So again, as I said, it was mainly about Tim and Nikita and Michael Zarafa and everything going on. And it was just interesting to see the press conference yesterday. Well, it wasn't really a press conference, was it? It was just George Rose, aka Don King, on there with Nikita, and they rotated through Brock Jarvis. They went to Michael Zarafa in Melbourne, but they had Ahmed Redder on there as well. So look, I thought it was an interesting interview, we'll call it. It's not a press conference, it's an interview. Now, first of all, George Rose did exactly what I said he would do. He pumped up Michael Zarafa's opponent as having that highlight reel knockout and the 16 knockouts in 18 wins, and talking up Nikita's opponent. Now, again, I'll say, as I said yesterday, I've got no dramas with the matchups for what they bring to the event as far as what they do for the fighters. So it's not about that, but it's just the spin. And look, all George Rose was missing yesterday was his Don King wig, wasn't he? He's done well to talk it up, but look, just judging by the response online, people aren't stupid. Of course, they go straight to BoxRec, straight to YouTube, and they make their own conclusions, just like I did. But again, I'm not rubbishing the premise of the event, because it's all going to sort of go towards one sort of result down the track, and that's hopefully, well, maybe a Nikita and Michael Zarafa fight. But one thing that really struck me straight off the bat is probably is that neither fighter was that, this is Nikita and Michael Zarafa I'm talking about, were committal about a potential fight. Now, the interviewer, again, I can't remember her name, she, this is probably another thing that actually irked me just a little bit, is that right from the word go, it wasn't about the upcoming event. It wasn't about the return of Nikita or what Michael Zarafa was doing. It was just about, are you guys going to fight? And what do you think about what he said? And what do you think what he said? The whole thing was about gearing towards that, which is, I suppose, to be expected. But as I said, I don't think Nikita and Michael were really into the fight. And like, both of them, of course, were asked numerous times about it. She kept coming back to it. But I thought that Nikita was just like, look, as always, respectful. He just, he doesn't take anything personal, Nikita. He just gets in there and fights till they tell him to fight. And that's the way he spoke. And I like the way and look, Nikita's probably a little bit like Tim. He's not the most outgoing type of guy. He's a bit quirky, but he doesn't give you a lot. He gives you sort of, 3 and 4 word answers sometimes. But he just, when Michael Zarafa's name come up, he just said, oh, well, I just fight who they tell me to fight. And I'm just glad to be back for this fight. And there was nothing really towards, yes, I want the fight. And George Rose as well didn't really push for that angle either. And surprisingly, Michael Zarafa didn't either. Now, he was just sitting on the ring. He's obviously just finished training or something. And he was a bit like, he just shrugged his shoulders and said, well, you know what? My real beef's not really with Nikita. It's actually with Tim. So I don't really, I'm not really that for the fight. And I'm not sure whether George Rose would have been squirming in his seats there, or the executives at Main Event and Fox Sports would have been squirming in the seats thinking, hang on, we've got these guys on to talk this fight up and neither one of them really care about it and really given us anything to work with. So, of course, they ran with some quotes afterwards, but I just thought Michael Zarafa was pretty lukewarm about the whole thing, and probably quite rightly so. The one question I have is, now, we keep talking about this rivalry and the feud and all this sort of stuff between the Zoos and Michael Zarafa. Don't you actually have to have actually locked horns in the ring to have a rivalry or a feud? I don't know why they keep banging on about it. I really don't. This is, well, an outside the ring feud, if you might want to call it that, because all along it's been Michael Zarafa who's been banging the fist on the table, demanding a fight with Tim, and then was sort of pushed in the way of Nikita by No Limit and Fox Sports at Main Event. Thought, well, Tim's out of the equation, let's just go to little brother. But it's been a manufactured feud. It's just been Michael Zarafa, as I said, demanding the fight. Tim all along has just said, nah, you've had your chance, I'm not interested now. And neither, well, apart from maybe the odd little remark or quote or whatever you might want to call it from Glenn Jennings or maybe a George Rose, at what stage or any stage has there been a definitive, this is the fight we're trying to make? Now, as I said, George Rose has put out some hints. Glenn Jennings, like he does, he loves to just stir the pot just a little bit. He's sort of said, well, you never know this and you never know that. But at no stage, apart from the boxing media and Fox Sports and everyone else who just keep wanting something to write about and keep saying it's imminent and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And then you get Tim saying, well, no, I couldn't care less about the fight. Then you get Nikita shrugging his shoulders saying, oh, well, I suppose we'll see what happens. There's nothing definitive about them fighting. And I thought, probably like a lot of you out there, thought that this card was just I suppose, on the journey to getting Nikita versus Michael at the end of the year. But as I said, from yesterday, from what I saw, now I'll probably be proven wrong and I'll probably announce it after the fight. I don't know. But from what I saw yesterday, it didn't really resonate that that's what's going to happen. And again, what rivalry and feud are we talking about? They haven't actually thrown a punch at each other. So how is that a rivalry? I don't know. But look, yeah, it was interesting as well that Michael said that he thought that Nikita was actually a better fighter than Tim. Now, I don't know whether that was now switching tacks, that if it is the case they do fight down the track, it probably gives the fight more cred. He's just maybe dropping the little Easter eggs in there that if they do fight, that while this is actually bigger than the Tim fight because he's a better fighter than Tim. I don't subscribe to that. There was a lot of conversation about it last night about who's the better fighter. I can't believe we're actually at this stage. Nikita hasn't fought for a year. And of course, Tim's fought a couple of times in that year and had a couple of losses. But Nikita hasn't fought for a year, and back then no one was even game enough or even had that in their mind that Nikita could possibly be a better fighter than Tim. And a year later, without even fighting, he suddenly surpassed his brother. I don't subscribe to it at all. I still think Tim is the better fighter, and the reason why is because ability-wise, yeah, they might be maybe on a par, but from what I've seen, I spoke about this last night, the difference between them is that Tim, well, I know he has panicked a bit in a couple of his recent fights because he had to, he was under the pump, but normally he's cool, he's calm, he's calculated, methodical, always keeps his cool and sticks to the plan, where Nikita can be a little bit of a hothead and a loose cannon and sort of go off the fight plan and get engaged in the fight. We've seen him rocked in fights, in fights that he really shouldn't have been rocked in. And a lot of it only because of his own sort of choosing. He's got involved in a fight, maybe a little bit tired, might be getting rocked with a fight, rocked by a punch, and instead of doing what an elite fighter should do and clinch and hold and take a round off and that sort of stuff, doesn't really know how to do it. and has found himself in trouble numerous times. And that's probably why I think Tim is the better fighter. And I still think he's probably a little bit more naturally gifted than Nikita, but the potential is there for Nikita. If he can sort of fix a few areas and work on a few deficiencies, he could be a very, very good fighter. But geez, he's got to fix that defence and just his whole demeanour in the ring, I suppose, and sticking to the plan. But so anyway, look, it was a cordial interview anyway from all parties. And it was sort of hard to sort of make of it because, again, Nikita doesn't give you much, and Michael was more subdued than what he normally is, and Big George, as I said, didn't say a lot either. But should be a good night of fights. Hopefully, they had Brock Jarvis on there as well. Look, I did a bit of research on his opponent. Strictly just a comeback fight. I reckon what they're doing is maybe gearing Brock Jarvis down the track of Nikita. That seems to be more on the mark to me, what they're looking at. Although it is Nikita's first international fight, but you just get the impression that they wanted Brock on the interview yesterday. They obviously wanted him on the card. He's now at middleweight. Whether they do fight at middleweight, maybe it's Jarvis and Zarafa. I don't know, but there's always a little bit of a method to the madness of what they do, and to have him on the interview yesterday and on this card in general, I think that Brock Jarvis will be in the equation for either Nikita or Brock. So Nikita or Michael Zarafa down the track. They also had Ahmed Redder on. A little bit pissed that he's not fighting Poking Horn now. I did say yesterday I was surprised they even matched him in the first place, but apparently Poking Horn's injured. But look, he's a character, Ahmed Redder. But yeah, look, you first got to get the runs on the board in the ring. That's what you've got to do. And so far, he hasn't beaten anyone. I know he's still calling out Harry Garside. And of course, it was funny yesterday because, again, they go towards this narrative, the interviewers, and she actually asked him a question about who we'd like to fight. And he just said, oh, well, whoever they put in front. And then was there anyone in particular you would want to call out? And then the penny dropped. He went, oh, yeah, I suppose I want on Harry Garside. So you can see where they're going with it all. And, I suppose it's to be expected. But, look, I don't know. I'll be paying for the card, but I'm not expecting too much, just like I said yesterday. So anyway, we'll see. Also, yesterday, sad news too that the former light heavyweight and cruiserweight champion, Dwight Muhammad Kawi, has passed away at 72. And look, a lot of fans these days might not have heard of Dwight Muhammad Kawi or know much about him. He was originally, g'day, how you doing? Come here, buddy. Come on. Little puppy wanting to have a chat to Neil. Originally, Dwight Braxton grew up in really impoverished, is that what they say, impoverished surroundings, and was in prison at an early age. In prison, learned how to box. This guy was 5'6", maybe 5'7", by the way, and ended up a light heavyweight champion, beat Matthew Saad Muhammad twice, lost in the unification fight with Michael Spence, and then went actually up to cruiserweight and won the WBA cruiserweight title. Ended up losing it to Evander Holyfield, fought Holyfield twice, actually lost a split decision to Evander Holyfield in the first fight and was stopped in the second fight. And also, if you can believe this, fought Big George Foreman. Yep, when he was on his quest for the heavyweight title. And what's Big George, about 6'3", 6'4", might even be a bit tall, I don't know. He's a big guy against Dwight Muhammad Kawi, who was 5'6", maybe 5'7". So just a legendary fighter was Kawi. And it's just been sort of a sad sort of year or two, hasn't it? We've lost so many great fighters. Earlier this year, of course, Mike McCallum, and in the last sort of year or so with Greg Haugen and those types of guys. And look, a lot of them maybe aren't household names to the masses out there, but to people like me that grew up in the 80s and 90s, it is sad that we're starting to lose a lot of those fighters now. And a lot of them are sort of health related as well, and even non-boxing with Hulk Hogan this week as well. It's a lot of the childhood sort of growing up and watching a lot of these fighters and wrestlers, I suppose, over the journey. And it sort of makes you think about your own mortality, I suppose, in a sad way. But to think that a lot of these people that you grew up with are all dying and not, relatively old. And I don't know whether it's all health related to what they, how hard they work to give us the entertainment and win their titles. but they all seem to be dying sort of in the sort of 60s and 70s, and it's just too young. But anyway, Dwight Muhammad Kawi is the latest to cross the bridge. But anyway, all right, guys, well, that's going to do it for today. Hope you have a great Tuesday, and we will catch you tomorrow.